kick off our next session with Miss Julie Jacobson. Julie is our state leader in this great state of Tennessee. She is the leader of Spay Tennessee, and she's going to talk to us about growing more spay neuter in your state. And a little bit about Julie. Julie grew up in Minnesota and spent a career in the U.S. Air Force, retiring as Lieutenant Colonel in 2002. She adopted her first dog, a pit named Kalamity Jane, and her personality got Julie interested in supporting a local animal welfare group. For 20 years, she ran a spay-neuter assistance program for her county, no animal control, no shelter, and no veterinarian. And since 2010 has been networking across the state as Spay Tennessee. This session is sponsored by Mississippi Spay and Neuter Network. We are thrilled to have Julie with us today. I am constantly saying that we want to copy paste everything in her brain so that we can share it with the greater spay and neuter community. So thank you, Julie, for being here. And with that, I'm going to let you take it away.
So yeah, we'll talk about how to grow more spay neuter in your state. There we go. And some terminology that I think seems to get confusing for some, but we deal with assistance programs, organizations that have no clinic. They strictly raise money and schedule appointments to help their local residents subsidize spay neuter surgeries. They might use a high quality, high volume spay neuter clinic, or they might use private vets or a combination of both. And when I talk about clinics, they are the nonprofit, high quality, high volume spay neuter, actually a fixed facility, and or might be a mobile, although there's not many mobiles in Tennessee. But one way I got started is I started gathering resources. I thought there was a need, instead of this conglomeration of information and databases about all the animal welfare programs and everything in the state, it was very hard to know who was a rescue, which was a shelter, what was municipal, what was nonprofit, which ones offer spay neuter assistance. So I focused strictly on a database of spay neuter resources. And one of the best sources of information that I found to find names of who is doing spay neuter in Tennessee was looking at who gets funding from the various grantors. Of course, that was when the grantors were more generous in doing more. That was a real helpful resource. So we started with that and started networking. And then really what I've done a lot of is help new programs get started. And really I help the assistance programs get started, the small nonprofits helping their local area. For clinics, yes, I'll work with the clinics, but I often put them in touch with other clinics or ASPCA Spay Neuter Alliance in Asheville. But yeah, we also know a lot of the clinic considerations. But yeah, when you're going to start a nonprofit doing spay neuter, yeah, be a nonprofit. And we're going to talk about board considerations, how to find appointments, how to find funding. Fundraising is important, as is grant writing, and what has worked in Tennessee as far as running an effective program, how to do outreach, and some rural reality factoids. One thing, we have a checklist for how to become a legal nonprofit in Tennessee. And then I ask people as they use it, let me know if anything was out of date so that we can keep that current. And it's really not that onerous. The recent groups in the last year, I'd say they're getting their approval within 3 months and they get their IRS approval and get all their state stuff done. But I always liked, pick a name that says what you do. And you say you're a humane society, the public is going to think you're the be all and end all for all things. And they're going to think they donate to you because they send money to the Humane Society of the United States. We all know that's not true. So we've got Fix Fentress was the name, Fix Wilson, Fix Trousdale, the various counties and things, but it's, get a good name. And also the mission statements are super critical. They need to be short and sweet. What I had heard once, if you can't tweet it out, it's too long, because it's really helpful if your whole board knows your mission statement and what that is. And if you're going to do TNR, make sure that's part of your mission statement, because if you're going to apply for TNR funding, it should be something that your mission statement says that you do. I highly recommend a post office box for the 501 organization and a separate phone line. If you use somebody's personal home address, especially again, here in Tennessee, we got a lot of counties without shelters, you'll find that people will drive to your house and dump animals. That happened to me. But yeah, and get a separate phone line. Don't use your home number. And Google Voice has a lot of good options, and a lot of people use different things. But if you use a cell phone, there are groups that have more than one volunteer or that are willing to answer the phone, and they can pass the phone around and share the pain, if you will. But so that's a good tip. If your organization also does some foster and rescue, or especially if you're a shelter, have a separate checking account for your spay neuter program. It just helps keep things neat and clean as far as grant funding and having that money dedicated to spay neuter be there. And again, if you're going to be doing fundraising prior to the event, the board should have an agreement of what percentage of the funding is going to go to your foster rescue program and what percentage is going to go to the spay neuter account. Just have those discussions in advance. You do have to file with the IRS and state annually, and you must have an online presence. It helps with your outreach. It's really required to get any grants, and a Facebook page only is okay. You don't have to have a fancy website or pay a bunch of money. And yeah, we've learned a thing or two in Tennessee networking. Board implosions happen. So, and this is a list of some common causes of boards imploding. There's a huge disagreement over fixing pregnant animals. So, have that discussion in advance before somebody comes on your board. Do you want to allow breeders to be on your board? Are your board members required to have fixed pets and get all their pets fixed? The funders really do like to see board members as donors. So a lot of boards, the organizations, they have a required amount that each board member either has to raise or donate $500 or $1,000 a year. And again, funders like to see that your board members are donors, because again, it helps. It's nice if the board supports your mission in that way. And then leave some flexibility for meetings. A lot of good board members aren't necessarily interested in having to come to a meeting every month. And so can you get away with quarterly only in-person meetings or just only Zoom meetings? And a lot of communication can be done on email. You might find there's more people interested in being on your board as long as they don't have to be tied down to a whole bunch of board meetings. And also make sure that they know if you do foster and rescue on the side, make sure that they know to be a board member, they are not required to be a foster home. That has kept a lot of good people off boards. They're so afraid they're going to be pressured into being a foster home. So finding appointments, that can be the hard part for a lot of us. First of all, be nice. The biggest complaint I hear from clinics and vet offices is the assistance programs and sometimes especially rescue groups really expect free services, and they can get very demanding because they're saving lives. And so they want this. So make sure that you be nice and look for spay neuter clinics that are near you. Maybe you can do a transport, or can you get a block of appointments each month? So that, yeah, you could do a transport. If a clinic might be able to give you a day and they'll tell you, yeah, you can have 25 animals, and they'll give you the parameters, how many can be female, male, cats, dogs, etc. And just get a transport day, and maybe you'll have people who can load up a van and drive to the clinic. That has been very effective here in Tennessee for the organizations that can do it. But again, it's important to be nice and make sure you stay within the parameters of scheduling that you're given. And because we have to work a lot with private vets, because we have 30 spay neuter clinics in Tennessee. West Tennessee is a kind of a dearth of resources. We're trying to get one open. If anybody wants to help get a clinic open in Jackson, Tennessee, Madison County, let me know. But working with private vets, try to negotiate prices. Again, you're not asking for free stuff, but especially if you can get away from a weight differential, because as one vet told me, our clients are really good at estimating their dog's weight, give or take 50 pounds. And he wasn't lying. So try to get a flat rate, every female dog or every male dog is this rate. And especially if you can, and I would accept even a kind of a higher rate if there's going to be no upcharges for pregnancy or in heat. It'll just, again, if you're an assistance program struggling for money, it makes it much easier to budget if you kind of can know what you're expecting to pay. Because if every cat is in heat and there's a $30 upcharge, yeah, that kind of shoots your monthly budget to heck. But anyway, so try to do that. Talk to the office manager if you can. Being willing to pay a slightly higher rate just for no weight differential fees. And if they can include a free rabies vaccine, again, accept a little bit higher rate, because if they're charging $20 for a rabies vaccine, I know for my program in the county, I had no extra money for vaccines. I had spay neuter grant money and a little bit extra, but if somebody had 5 cats and rabies shots are $20 each, if the client could afford the $100, which was doubtful for just the rabies vaccines, then that would mean I had to pay 100% of the surgery. But so if it's a free rabies, if they've got 5 cats, they could probably come up with $50, especially if they're told, oh, by the way, it'll be a free rabies, because the public does understand the need and necessity for a rabies vaccine every year. So that's the easy part. So if it's a free rabies, it's much easier to get a $5 or $10 copay. So just try, and then same thing is true for spay neuter clinics. I know a lot of people seem to think it's an extra revenue stream, but it really hurts the assistance programs that might be feeding your clinic and sending clients there, because our money just can't go as far if the client has no leftover money after the rabies vaccine, because we don't have extra funding. And again, work with private vets. Maybe they only want to see your clients on certain days. And maybe you can be at the private vet to help with check-in and help with all the paperwork, because a lot of our clients, they don't have vets, and a lot of private vets, they know that our clients maybe aren't the best at reading and understanding instructions. And I'm not trying to sound negative or pejorative, but that is just our reality, especially our rural reality. So if they only want to see your clients on Thursdays, go with it. Can you reserve some slots in advance? And can you schedule the slots that they give you, or do the clients need to call and get on the books? I had good luck, again, after I had built up a relationship, that they would give me slots and I could fill them. And just as long as I emailed them like 2 days in advance of who was coming, what they had, how much money the client was supposed to pay, and then what they could bill me. And if I wasn't going to use the slots, tell them, like I said, at least 2 days in advance. And then, yeah, how do you communicate with either the clinic or your private vets? Because these are the clients that we're going to subsidize. We're helping this client. So I found it helpful. Well, with the spay neuter clinic that I worked with, it was a Google Doc, because most of my clients went there. And it was a Google Doc that I could keep updated, alphabetical order by last name, the client's name, phone number, what animal they had, what their copay was, and then just some additional information. Cat is possibly pregnant. Dog had broken leg last year, whatever, possible skin issues. But just, you could put in all kinds of comments to help the clinic know about scheduling. And so they know that. And then so that was when the client would call the clinic or the private vet to schedule their own appointment. And then with the private vets, I just did a simple email, because there wasn't that many that I sent to private vets, probably no more than 5 a month. And again, is the clinic willing to collect the copay? Or is the private vet willing to collect the copay? If your clinic uses HQ software, it's a pretty easy after scheduling, just an email that'll come to them with instructions for how to pay their copay on PayPal. Because it's, no shows are a huge problem, and that's when you can lose your service providers because you have just too many no shows. Collecting the copays in advance is one of the best ways to reduce no shows. And some people require just a $20 deposit even just to book an appointment. Because especially in rural areas, I'm not a fan of free. It's unsustainable for most of us, funding wise. A lot of organizations that do free have to go on hold and their program stops for 3 months because they're out of money. That's not an effective program. Or if you do it for free for a month, nobody's going to call you because they're going to wait till the next free special that you do. So again, if it's a free rabies, you can get a $5 or $10 copay and collect that in advance. It's non-refundable. There are good reasons that they might have to cancel. But again, it's non-refundable if they don't try to reschedule 24 hours in advance. My best story about no show, this gal, she had prepaid, and about 4 a.m, I got a voicemail because she was being wheeled into the delivery room unexpectedly. Her baby was coming early and she was going to miss the appointment. And was that okay? And when I did finally talk to her, yeah, no problem, honey. You don't lose your deposit. We'll reschedule you, no penalty. But because if she can do that on the way to the delivery room, I kind of have no sympathy for other no-shows. And again, working with private vets or the clinics, try to get monthly billing, and some groups leave a credit card on file with the vet so that they can just bill every day. Some vets want to do that. I found it easier just to do monthly billing, and then just don't forget to pay your bills on time. That really does matter, again, or you'll lose your service provider. Finding funding. Yeah, this is the bugaboo. What I've learned is once your IRS application is in the mail, you can legally solicit funds while you wait for approval. At least that is true in Tennessee. Since it's the IRS, I'm kind of assuming it's true nationwide. And then, have a donation jar at any and all events. And maybe with the cute little sign on it, friends don't let friends have unwanted litters. That's where you use the a sad picture or something, just a cat or dog nursing looking miserable while nursing, but have that donation jar out there. And again, if you do TNR, I really recommend getting a clean used trap, and that can be set up as your donation jar. Because trust me, it draws people to your table or your booth or wherever you are, and they want to know what's this trap for. And you get to start explaining TNR and finding those community cats that need your help. Well, guess what? You don't get money if you don't ask. And I know a lot of us, we're not used to begging or asking for money. And it can be really awkward, but don't forget, you're doing it for the animals. You're not doing it for yourself. And I know when I would approach banks or businesses, just asking for a donation, what I learned is, dress smartly, have some information about your program, maybe a 1-page handout, or if you've got a trifold fancy thing. But you just go in and you ask, can I speak to who's ever in charge of charitable giving? They know what to do with you after that, and then you can answer their questions. So yeah, can I speak to who's ever in charge of charitable giving? Because yeah, you don't get money if you don't ask. And there's a lot of great ideas for online fundraising and this and that, and online auctions, different kinds of birthday fundraising events. But a lot of that stuff for your organization, it's a lot easier, or you make more money if you have over 2,000 followers. And Pampered Chef often does some of the, what do you call them? The people, one of the saleswomen, they will be able to offer you, I'll give you a portion of the sales if you can sell X amount of dollars. But again, it's a lot easier. The more Facebook followers you have, the easier. And getfullyfunded.com, that's a really great resource. They have a paid mentorship program, and that can be a little bit expensive, again, because my specialty is our small groups operating on 25,000 or less. But the website getfullyfunded.com, they also have a YouTube channel with a bunch of short snippets. And Sandy Reese is really perky and upbeat, and her staff is wonderful. But you can get a lot of good tips there. And again, they speak small group too. Grants, they're getting a little harder to get, and I won't get on that soapbox. But if you've ever filled out a government form, you can write a grant. You really can do it. And yeah, because I do a whole separate 1-hour talk on grant writing. Yeah, you can email me if you want more information, or maybe we can set one up. But so, yeah, so you got your 501, you got a little bit of money, you got some vets who are willing to work with you. How do I run a program? And a lot of people in the old days, last century, well, you really don't need to do a voucher. In fact, when I started, the vet that was first willing to work with us, he said he would not work with us if we did a voucher, because he'd had such bad luck with previous programs that had started and died. The clients were losing the voucher or claiming they had one but lost it and wanting to come in for services, or they forge it, they copy it, they change the amount. Anyway, he wasn't willing to work with me, so I said, okay, I'll find another way. So yeah, okay, that's how old it was. I would fax them the information about who my clients were. But because some groups kind of talk about how much they pay in printing and postage just to mail those vouchers and print everything out. A multi-copy voucher, we'll keep the white copy, the client gets the blue copy, the vet gets the yellow copy. A very small program. They spent $1,300 in printing one year. And my only question was, how many cats can you fix for $1,300? But like I said, I talked about the Google Doc or emails. I won't mention faxing again, because that gives away my age. But yeah. But you can do applications. I think they're mostly a barrier to service. There's still a lot of people. When I quit my county program in 23, I kind of tracked it that year. There was a good, I'd say 30%, close to a third of my clients who could not or would not go online. They simply don't trust going online. They may not have a computer or a smartphone, or they don't trust online. They don't want to put credit card information online. They don't want to do any of that. And so, applications can be a way to ease your workload, but if you're going to have an online application, you must also have a phone number. If you want to reach the clients who need your help, you have to have a phone number, in addition to an online presence. And also what really helped our program a lot was a crate and trap loan program. And that was really our T&R program. We loan traps. We would meet people in town, loan them the traps, show them how to work them. And again, our traps were really well labeled. And actually what one group in Tennessee does, when they loan a bank of 5 traps for somebody with a colony, they'll take a picture of the woman standing next to the 5 traps and say, okay, we have this on file that you have these. And because again, we tried to charge a deposit for the trap, saying, give us a check and we won't cash it. We'll just hand you your check back when you return the trap. They didn't believe us. So the deposits, again, maybe in more urban areas that can work, but in rural Tennessee, the deposit, they simply didn't trust us. But yeah, just keep track of where they are, and have them well labeled. And again, you do have to keep track of statistics. That my nomenclature is female dogs, female cats, male cats by month. And it's not that hard. I did it in a notebook. And just keep track of that stuff. And what really helped me was because instead of circling the drain in January, because we only did 8 animals, I could look back and say, oh, every January is really slow because everybody's out of money from the holidays. And also, if you have a foster program or a TNR program, track those numbers separately. Keep your totals, but track them separately so that when you're applying for a grant, you can say, we did 900 animals and 300 of them were feral cats. Again, just helps you tell your story because that's important for grant writing. And I would say strive to do all the pets in the household. And I strive, that's not always possible. Some animals are too old, some are infirm. Some men are emotionally attached to their dog's testicles, and you're not going to get him in no matter what. But if he's got a male and a female dog, and you want to get that 6-month-old lab, Fertile Myrtle, into the vet. So I have made exceptions, but they're very, very rare. Because again, I just made it more affordable. Because I would ask, they want to fix a female dog. How many dogs do you have? Well, we have 2, but we're not going to fix the male. Okay, well, your female dog is going to be $130. If you'll do both of them, we can do both for $50, and that includes the free rabies. Well, guess what? Money talks. It rarely, well, it never got ugly because people, it's our money, our rules. Again, the clients who are calling for our help are used to following other people's rules and how to qualify for the assistance that they're looking for. So again, I would always say our funders won't allow it. We are not allowed to spend our money if you don't fix all the pets that you have. And again, they understand that. And something Kathy Bissell said, yeah, don't make income qualification onerous. Some groups, they were collecting W-2s and pay stubs and keeping them, and it's like, no, don't do that. But there's very few grants that have income criteria. There's only one, our state in Tennessee, our state license plate grant, they want you to focus on low income, but you get to define what low income means. But yeah, so don't make it onerous on yourself or for the client, because that's when they start not trusting you if you're trying to get too much in their business. Do you have a job? I might ask somebody. Yeah, I'm part-time at Walmart. You qualify. Oh, you're a teacher in the county school system? Yeah, you're low income. Because there was, I think it was 2009 or 7. There was a study, Peter Marsh did a study that household income of 35,000 or less was the level at which spay neuter did not happen without financial assistance. And that was regardless of household size. Adjusting for inflation, that number is now 50,000. So that's kind of that was a national study. So I know in our rural areas, the majority of your people probably live on less than $50,000 a year household income. So that tracks for low income. But again, as Kathy Bissell said, some are just looking for a bargain, or especially in there was no animal shelter. Somebody was willing to keep a stray dog that came onto their property. They just weren't prepared for a big vet bill to get that dog vetted and spayed. You betcha I was going to financially help them and just ask how much of this can you afford to pay? That's a good question, because yeah, flat rates, kind of don't work. If you're going to charge a flat rate of $25 a cat and somebody has 10 cats, it's not going to happen. They're not going to have $250. But I had good luck with $100 package deals. 10 cats, I'll do them for $100 with the free rabies. Oh, oops. Did I go the wrong way? Yeah, this is a slide. One of our clinics in Tennessee, they would always publish the shelter intake and shelter euthanasia rates. Well, actually, they were publishing spay neuter rates. I'm sorry, they were only publishing spay neuter and shelter euthanasia rates. Said you have to include the intake because it's really about the intake. Intake going down is the story as spay neuter goes up. So if you are fortunate enough to be able to access shelter stats, again, be nice. Sign in blood if you have to that you're not going to use those stats as a cudgel to beat up the shelter on social media. They will give them to you. But again, it helps you tell your story when you're looking for funding. Because of the efforts of our program, shelter intake has gone down, 36% or whatever since in the last 5 years. You tell your story. But yeah, it's intake, euthanasia, and spay neuter. And there's none of the national databases, shelter databases that include spay neuter numbers. And I think that's a travesty and wrong. Yeah, and when you do outreach, use really simple flyers. And use the word fix. We have a lot of funny stories about people thinking, oh, we can help you sterilize your pet. Well, he doesn't need a bath. But yeah, use fix because that works. And, we had board members who would complain that, well, when you say fix, it makes it sound like there's something wrong with the animal. And I would just say, answer the phone for a week and then get back to me. But yeah, on your flyers and outreach for your clients, it's different language than what you would use for outreach to donors. And, how do you find clients? We'll go wherever the poor go for goods and services. There's food banks, food stamp office, the laundromats. There's a lot of churches that do commodity distribution. Yeah, just go to those places. And yeah, they're happy to take your stuff. And across Tennessee, we have found that the best advertising is word of mouth. But again, you have to ask the clients. Would you please spread the word? Would you tell your friends and neighbors about our program? And a lot of them are shocked. You mean you'd help my sister too? Yes, we will. But again, you have to ask them to please spread the word. And that, again, across Tennessee, that's been the best advertising. Although recently, there's a lot of community Facebook pages. I don't like Hip Cookville, Jackson County News and Happenings. There's different community pages where, it can be kind of depressing to look at those, but what the community thinks is important. However, people go there because they want to see what's the latest scuttlebutt, who's in trouble, who's hating who. But that's a good place to post your flyers. There was a gal, she has a transport program from her county to a clinic, and she was surprised she was having trouble filling the next transport. She put a thing on the county community page, Facebook page, and that was the most active one. And yeah, she got 34 calls in a day. And yeah, and don't forget about Feline Fix by 5. That's, why doesn't the public spay neuter? They think they can't afford it. And they don't know when the right time is. Yeah, we've all seen female cats in heat at 3 months old, mothers before they're 6 months old. Feline Fix by 5 has a lot of good information and graphics and helps spread the word. And again, as you're trying to be fancy, canva.com has free graphics support. Clearly, I don't go there because my graphics team was probably busy taking the dog out that day. But yeah, my graphics team is me. So my stuff is really pretty simple, but they do help make really nice graphics. And these are some good cartoons. Again, not for your donor outreach, but the public loves this. It catches their eye, and you're good to go. So, oh, I don't know what that restaurant line is in there, but tired of unwanted litters? Let us help you fix your pets. These are the flyers I would put around town. Let us help you fix your pets. Really simple. You don't need to go into the top 10 reasons to spay neuter because they're not going to read that whole thing. Just let us help you fix your pets. And then the phone number, and then, oops. I didn't mean to do that either. I would take the scissors to cut off these tabs because people don't tear them off really well. And then I put FOA at the end of the phone number. So when they found that piece of paper in their pocket later, they would remember, oh, that's right, that was Friends of Animals. I'm supposed to get the animals fixed. But really simple flyers work great. Because even on your website or Facebook page, if you start out with the top 10 reasons to spay neuter, you've kind of lost them. Because if they're looking for spay neuter help, they've landed on your page. They're convinced to do it. How do they contact you? Just make it easy. Yeah, so here's some factoids from Tennessee. Again, this is from anecdotal talks and stuff for the last 15 years. But we think that in rural areas where there is no spay neuter program, the pet population is probably 90% of the human population. And yes, that's a lot of animals. And that would be including the community cats. And maybe 30% of the pets are already fixed before a spay neuter program starts. And when you get started, you'll start out fixing more dogs and cats because, you know, we all know the public is more dog friendly often than cat friendly, and not good or bad, but yeah, because you'll know you're making a difference. You've reached a tipping point when suddenly you're doing more cats than dogs. And shelter intake is the decrease is first noticeable in dogs and puppies. And then again, then cats become, well, they become the predominant clients for spay neuter. And because you know, you can do some aggressive spay neuter, and I'll talk about some numbers on the next slide, but you can, you know, we had goals to do 500 a year. But you really, because I wanted to quit like 10 years before I did. But I realized you just kind of can't stop. But we are, you know, the numbers went way down as far as calls for assistance. We still had plenty of money. We had plenty of appointments pre-COVID, but we were still doing 25 or 35% of our highest year numbers. Because in Tennessee, in counties with population under 25,000, if you can do 500 pets a year for 5 years, you will see a difference. And that was true in our small county was 10,000 people. Where I did that. And our pet ownership rates are more than double the national statistics. In fact, according to the national statistics, we fixed all the cats in Jackson County by 2007 and all the dogs by 2008 after our program got aggressive in 2005. So, I mean, it's just cray because they do surveys based on, oh yeah, their information comes from surveys done at vet offices. And guess what? In the rural areas and in a lot of America, many pets don't have a vet. And again, income qualification, don't make it onerous. Your vet may have their requirement issues in order to work with you. Just roll with that. And then this is the 50,000 that I mentioned. And that's adjusting for inflation from a study done by Peter Marsh and other experts in 2007 or 2009. And yeah, no free or flat rates. There is an affordable price point that will get all the animals in the door, and just find out what it is. And that's why there's no flat rates. I was surprised that this $100 package deal worked as well as it did, and other clinics are using it. You got multiple animals. Yeah, it's $100. You got 8 cats. I'll do 8 cats for $100. You only bring in 5, it's still $100. So don't give any away until the appointment. You know, just bring in all 8. No, yeah, but yes, it's a flat rate, but you got to get them all in. And prepaying reduces the no-shows. And don't forget that every spay neuter prevents 4 or 5 unwanted puppies and kittens in the first year alone. So you've done 100 spay neuters in 1 year. The next year, you've avoided 400 or 500 puppies and kittens. And that's just in that first year. So then that extrapolate that beyond. But that's a good number to say how prevention works. You know, because when I would do press releases, you know, we couldn't talk about shelter intake, but we could say the 500 animals we fixed probably prevented 2,500 others, you know, next year. Networking, this is super important, or at least it saved my sanity, because you are not alone. But often it feels like it, doesn't it? For about 20 years now, spay neuter programs in our area, we meet in the bar at a local restaurant the last Friday of the month. And we just bring our gripes and complaints or success stories or fundraising ideas, and we just kind of support each other. Statewide, we have a closed Facebook group for people doing spay neuter. Again, where you can vent your spleen or ask questions about how do you handle this situation. And then we also do monthly Zooms and with different topics and things. Because I'm here to tell you, I could and would not be doing this for 20 years without networking support. Because yeah, I was gonna go nuts. So before you decide to fill out a job application to work at the car warranty call center, because you're so frustrated with your spay neuter work, try some networking in your local area, or give me a call, send me an email. I'll help talk you off the ledge. But here's what I know for sure. The best way to reduce shelter euthanasia is by reducing intake. The best way to reduce intake is fixing pets in their homes. And when we make the story about shelter euthanasia, the mission becomes rescue. When we make the story about intake, the mission becomes spay neuter. And if you don't try to fix all the pets, the odds are good every household in your community will continue to be part of the problem. And spay neuter is the very foundation of wellness. People say they need to focus on wellness. Yeah, well, spay neuter's a big part of that. It's not just about vaccines. And what we have found in Tennessee, when pet owners have control of the pet census, they're not expecting an unwanted litter or two every year, they can afford to take better care of their pets. Within 5 years of the spay neuter clinic opening in Cookeville, every vet in the area, 5 vets, all increased staff because of the increase. People were just taking better care. They got some good information from the spay neuter clinic. You should get this pet on heartworm prevention. You should get these vaccines. It looks like it's got a skin condition. Please go to a private vet. But yeah, everybody, all the vets increased staff. And we really need the National Animal Welfare Foundations to return to a focus on spay neuter. And speaking of them abrogating their responsibilities, they also are now promoting intact adoptions, which is the very definition of insanity. And these are my first 2 dogs. But yeah, that's what they think of shelters and rescues that don't alter before adoptions, or national animal welfare organizations who tolerate and promote it. Meow. And yeah, but October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. These are my dogs again. If you get cats or dogs, you get them spayed before their first heat, you practically eliminate their chance of breast cancer in their lifetime. It's a super good reason to do that. And we have a post about that on our Spay Tennessee Facebook page, and it's also on United Spay Alliance Facebook page. And my bottom line is, if this work was easy, it would already be done.
Thank you, Julie. Oh my goodness. So much great information for everybody. Full of Julie-isms, as I have come to think of it.
Yeah.
All right. I know we had some questions, pardon me, questions coming in, and I had some come to mind as well as we went through that presentation. So we might just kind of rewind and work our way back through. But one of the questions way back at the beginning came in: how do you collect the copay for these surgeries in advance?
Well, it depends. Maybe your clinic is willing to collect them. We used to have the clients mail their check or stop by the clinic and pay their copay in advance. Sometimes because my goal was never to see the clients, just deal with them over the phone. But sometimes they would sometimes mail us the check, or if I was going to see them in town to loan a crate, I would get their copay. And or sometimes it's just part of what they have to. Well, with the private vets, I don't think the private vets were willing to collect it in advance. But again, I wasn't using private vets very much. Groups that do use private vets, some of them are willing to collect the copays, many are not. So you might have to have a PayPal account that people can prepay their copay to your organization, and then the vet just bills you 100%, but you've got their copay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of a make it work situation, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
It might not be one size fits all, but whatever you can do to make that work. And so I think you addressed this a little later in the presentation, but just to reiterate, so especially in our rural communities that we're talking about here, like folks just are not online, which is something I know you talk about a lot. And so can you again just kind of reiterate how you're reaching those folks outside of everyone thinks, well, I'll post to my Facebook page and it'll solve all my problems. Um,
We'll get those simple flyers, because in our town, we had like 3 community bulletin boards at the banks and the courthouse and the post office, although the post office had to take theirs down. But yeah, you could just post those flyers in community places. But again, I made sure the food stamp office and all the food bank places, the churches that did food giveaways, or they would have free food the second Saturday or whatever, just wherever the poor people go for goods and services. Because you can have business cards, or I just took a sheet of regular paper and made fake business cards. So it was just a piece of paper. Again, cheap, cheap, cheap. I didn't pay for business cards. I just printed some out on plain paper and cut them up and brought them there.
it doesn't have to be fancy, folks.
No, no.
In fact, I have heard you say more than once, Julie, that, keep it simple when and ever, however you can. Just like the language of fix your pets, use the cartoons, the illustrations. I thought at first, I was like, oh, those illustrations, they're kind of like cheesy, but we have had such positive response to using cartoons since we have done it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was that simple, like a silly little cat and dog cartoon. Who knew?
Yeah.
Here I thought I had to have fancy super high quality like photos from a surgical suite to express spay neuter. No, you don't, folks. No, you don't. All right. So, and I think this is probably a question in a lot of folks' minds. So, speaking of giving these services or the low cost services, especially to folks, how can you justify giving people money for spay neuter that might have the ability to pay for it and taking that opportunity away? Like when you have limited resources, how can you make that justification, or what's the logic there?
Because I don't want to get in their business and know how much money they have. Most of Tennessee does not have shelter facilities. Most counties in Tennessee do not have municipal shelters. So again, if they're fixing it, and some people are just looking for a bargain. It's not about me and I'm not going to be Judge Julie. If you have those fancy nails, you should be able to afford this. That is because what I know is if they're calling me, they're looking for a bargain and they may not fix the pet without help. But I did find as the years went by, as people called, and I would say, well, full price at the low cost clinic we work with is $110. Many people started saying, oh, I can afford that.
Mhm.
So we've, asking what they can afford. But, yes, they might have a fancy cell phone, but for all we know, somebody in their family is paying for that because that's the only way to keep in touch. And that's probably their television, their computer, their email. It's everything. It's how so a family member may be paying that. But I am not Judge Julie on that. I justify it by it's about the animals. It's not about me and what I think they should be able to afford.
It's a very important perspective, and I thank you for sharing that. We have someone joining us, Tanya from Oaxaca, Mexico. She says, can you share how much you charge families for one pet in general? We charge about 250 pesos or 12 US dollars per pet. It's the equivalent of our minimum daily wage here in Mexico.
Well, a lot of times, again, the people who need our help, they're very quick to brag about the public assistance programs they're on. I get food stamps. How much do I have to pay? And, I would usually, I would ask them, how much can you afford? That was a question beyond them. So I might start with havers, but often $25 is generally, I could get $25 for people with one pet, generally could afford $25 with a free rabies.
That's a good point. So we have a question from Amanda. If you're working in an area without a shelter, how can you measure intake as an argument for funding the grants or local governments?
Well, you don't use intake when you don't have a shelter, honey. But for 90% of the funding I got in 20 years was from grants. And no, I did not have any shelter stats, but I could still tell a story. I'm in a county with no animal control, no shelter, no veterinarian. It's approximately 4,500 households in 300 square miles and a poverty rate that stays above 20%. The percentage of adults with a high school or a GED equivalent degree is 76%. And to date, our program, Spay Neuter is our best weapon against pest homelessness, and it's a public health and safety issue for our community. And to date, we have fixed 1,500 animals, and our goal is to do, 500 more next year. And I would always ask for, our average subsidy is $50. So we're asking for a $5,000 grant to fix 100 more pets. And if this request cannot be fully funded, we can spend your money to fix fewer pets, and we'll continue to pursue alternative sources of funding. You do not need shelter. Well, again, and a lot of groups in Tennessee, again, don't have any shelter stats, or the shelter isn't willing to help them. But yeah, you can learn to tell a story.
Storytelling is key for sure. And there's a lot of them out there, and learning how to spin it. And I think listening to you, Julie, I'm always reminded of how if we just flip this around a little bit and you tweak the messaging, and like I love how you say, when we make the story about euthanasia, it becomes about rescue. And when we make it about intake, then it's spay neuter. And just that simple shift does so much.
Exactly. Because people love to just brag or talk about the euthanasia stats. No, it's about the intake, stupid.
Mm-hmm. That is what we're combating, and that is what's weighing people down and is causing so much stress on, the shelter staff, the rescues, the volunteers, the animal control, everyone. That's the problem, right? Is the intake. All right, so I want to begin transitioning to kind of wrapping up. I have two wrap-up questions for you. And so I know that you have helped and mentored countless groups to start doing this kind of work. And so I'm wondering, can you identify like a couple of like the top most common like mistakes that you see, like when someone starts going down a certain path and you just go, no, like what are the like common pitfalls for groups that are trying to start out and do the right thing, but maybe take a journey you wouldn't recommend?
I'm going to use my home phone number, and I'm going to do it for free, and I'm going to use my own money.
Right
Don't
off the
do
top there.
Don't do that.
Very good. Very good points. Okay. And then one last question for us to kind of tie it all together. If folks just take one thing away from this session and our time together here with you, what do you hope they take away?
If you think there should be more spay neuter in your community, Superman ain't coming. You are the superhero. You can do it. One person can do it with you. You do need some support. But the dirty little secret, there's an awful lot of groups in Tennessee that are really one person strong. They've got a board, they've got some volunteers, but there's one heartbeat that's keeping it afloat. But you can do it. It can be done. Again, network and find some support. Like I said, call me, but yeah, Superman ain't coming.
And that network and that support, that's what we are also here at United Spay Alliance. That's what we aim to do. And that's why Alliance is a part of our name. And so connecting with Julie is a big piece of that. With all of our state leaders is a big piece of that. And so if you want to get in touch with us and you need to connect with any of these resources, we are always available to you. Get in touch with me at Brianna at UnitedSpayAlliance.org. I connect you with her email, by the way, is literally Spayzilla, like she had on the slide, Spayzilla at yahoo.com. We'll put this all in the lobby chat for everyone to access. But I'm gonna those glasses, man, you were rocking them. So I want to thank Julie again. I think this is such an important presentation. It speaks to so much of our audience who is an area that just isn't resourced the same way that some of the bigger cities are. So thank you, Julie, for sharing your expertise. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this session.